Elias Trent swore under his breath as the starling shuddered, rattling loose a cup of nutrient paste he hadn't finished stirring. He hated the Zyrathian expanse for many reasons, chief among them being that it looked suspiciously like a glittering cosmic trash heap on sensors, full of rogue asteroids, drifting satellites, and the occasional warning about interdimensional anomalies that his insurance never covered. Great, he muttered, kicking the cup aside and earning a satisfying plop against the console. Just what I needed. Space garbage and radioactive gas clouds. My life is a vacation. His freighter groaned again, a metallic groan that sounded almost human. Relax, old girl, he said to the ship as if it had ears. We've survived 3 asteroid showers, 2 radiation storms, and that time I spilled coffee all over the navigation panel. You'll survive this too. The starling hummed as though in agreement, or maybe it was just the stabilizers fighting against gravity anomalies. Either way, Elias took it as moral support. Then the sensors blipped. A single life sign, faint but definitely alive, drifting in the middle of a nebula whose readings suggested imminent electrical storms. Elias squinted at the monitor. Well, look at that. Someone out here must have really wanted a dramatic entrance, or maybe a bad Yelp review. He adjusted his course, maneuvering around glowing gas clouds that could make even seasoned pilots puke from the light distortions. Okay, whoever you are, hope you like my jokes, because I'm the only entertainment out here. When he boarded the alien craft, he found her. A woman, looking human enough to make him pause, except for the long ears curling backward like fine silver crescents, her hair shifting slightly with the ambient light of the nebula. Her skin was pale but not sickly, her eyes reflecting the storm outside in a way that made him feel like a child caught peeking through a telescope. And she wasn't exactly smiling. She wasn't blinking. She was waiting and probably already assuming he was a murderer, which, to be fair, was a reasonable assumption given the first 50 humans she had met probably tried to vaporize her on sight. Hi, Elias said, offering a hand as he stepped closer. He had only a second to think before she tensed like a bowstring. A nice day for a nebula, not that you'd care. His attempt at casual humor landed somewhere between absurd and desperate. Her long ears twitched and he misinterpreted it as a sigh. Right, I'll just hang out then. He fiddled with the lock restraints, realizing that her technology wasn't just alien. It was impressive, designed to frustrate, confuse, and utterly humiliate anyone who touched it without the proper code. Looks like someone's having fun designing their own handcuffs, he muttered. Not me, I hate fun. A spark of static hit the console and he yelped, smacking the panel with a hand. Ow, yeah, that's helpful, definitely getting better. The alien woman didn't flinch, only blinked slowly like she was cataloging his idiocy for future reference. Elias grinned nervously. You know, usually people panic when I show up. You are different, suspiciously calm. Do you meditate, or do humans just make you want to file complaints with your space HR department? Finally, he managed to disengage the restraints. Freedom, he announced dramatically, making a small bow. See, no one died, well, not counting my social dignity. He half expected her to remain stoic, and she did, except for a barely perceptible twitch in one of her long ears. He counted it as progress. Why are you here? He asked, finally, gesturing to the nebula and the craft. Space is big, scary, and mostly full of things that want to kill you. Not exactly a tourist trap. Did someone give you directions wrong? Because if so, my sympathy is 0, but my sarcasm is infinite. She looked at him then, really looked at him, and he felt briefly like an open book under a magnifying glass. Human arrogance, she finally said, her voice calm but firm, carrying an accent he couldn't place, not from any world he had visited. You presume to understand without knowing. Hush, he said, raising a hand in mock surrender. I usually just say hi and hope it doesn't explode in my face. Works about 50% of the time. He walked around, examining the alien controls, tapping buttons that should have done catastrophic things but instead lit up in a soft hum. Wow, this is very mood-ring. Why did you build this yourself? Or did a cosmic IKEA catalog crash land in your backyard? For the first time, the alien shifted slightly, a hint of a smile forming, though it vanished as quickly as it came. Elias noticed the small gesture. Aha, he whispered. You're laughing at me, right? Don't worry, I laugh at myself all the time, mostly because no one else is sane enough to. The Starling's comms beeped, alerting him to incoming debris, another rogue asteroid, bigger than usual, spinning unpredictably. Perfect timing, he said, eyes rolling. You just had to witness my stellar piloting skills at the worst moment. Hang on, I promise to make this fun. He navigated the freighter around the debris, cracking jokes as though the cosmos was an audience for his stand-up routine. Ever notice how asteroids are like cosmic cats? Random, destructive, and mostly indifferent to you? Yeah, I think that's science. The alien woman watched silently, one hand brushing a panel, possibly calculating the odds of him surviving. After the debris passed, he glanced at her. You're probably thinking, this human is insane. You're not wrong, but also I'm incredibly lucky. Usually I'd be screaming into the void right now. Her long ears twitched and he took it as approval, a small victory. I'm Elias Trent, he said, extending a hand once more. And you, mysterious nebula tourist, are about to find out that humans are mostly harmless. I swear mostly. The alien's eyes narrowed, a faint trace of amusement in the corners. I am Lyra, she said, and I do not trust humans. Good, Elias replied, grinning. Trust is overrated anyway, humor, however, is essential. Welcome aboard the Starling, where the jokes are free, the danger is optional, and your long ears might just get tangled in the emergency cords if you're not careful. For the first time since he had found her, Lyra allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible smirk. Elias noticed. Victory, he whispered, giving a tiny, triumphant fist pump. One laugh, one alien smirk, that's how legends are born. Outside, the nebula crackled with electric storms, and the stars danced in silent chaos. But inside the freighter, amid sparks, groans, and awkward jokes, a fragile connection had begun. Two beings from vastly different worlds, meeting in the middle of space with nothing but sharp wits, thin trust, and a growing curiosity about each other. And Elias, as always, couldn't resist a final quip. By the way, Lyra, if you think my piloting is scary now, just wait until I try karaoke. Her long ears twitched again, and for a fleeting electric second she laughed. The freighter hummed a low, contented tune as Elias glanced at the panels, muttering to himself about the mysteries of alien engineering. Lyra stood nearby, arms crossed, her long ears twitching with what he imagined could be equal parts annoyance and curiosity. You know, he said, if this were a cooking show, I'd be presenting a nebula soufflé, full of sparks likely to explode and tastes slightly of regret. She didn't laugh, but her gaze followed his movements, and he counted that as progress. Your craft is advanced, Elias said, running a hand over a sleek surface that responded to touch like it had a pulse. Do you make everything respond like that, or is it just so it can judge humans properly? Her eyes flickered with a color shift he could swear was a sigh. It's calibrated for efficiency, she said, voice smooth, but Elias wasn't convinced she didn't mean to watch you trip over every console like an amateur space cadet. He decided to test the theory. He pressed a random sequence of buttons, half to see what would happen and half because he genuinely couldn't resist. Alarms briefly rang, lights flashed, and the holographic displays twitched. Yep, he said cheerfully, ducking as a small arm of the console extended toward him, definitely judging me, totally what I expected. Lyra's long ears twitched again once, twice, like punctuation marks to her silence. The calm was shattered by the freighter's sensors beeping furiously. Oh, look at that, Elias said, eyes widening. You'd think space would be boring after a while. Nope, entering what I call unplanned social interactions with potentially deadly strangers. Lyra's head tilted, the first small acknowledgement that she might appreciate his sarcasm, or at least tolerate it. Outside, shadows shifted as rogue scavenger drones approached, their metallic bodies glinting in the nebula's charged haze. Elias tapped the console like a pianist, rerouting power to the shields. Lyra, he said, if you've got a plan, now's the time. My plan involves yelling a lot and hoping they leave. Spoiler, it doesn't usually work. She moved to the pilot interface of her craft, her hands dancing over controls with elegant precision. Sparks trailed her fingertips and the air seemed to hum. Humans underestimate probability, she said, not unkindly. Your method is chaotic yet effective. Thank you, Elias said, throwing up both hands. I aim to impress, mostly myself, sometimes bystanders. He maneuvered the Starling closer, dodging asteroids that spun lazily in the electric glow. Ever notice how asteroids are like teenagers? Completely unpredictable, occasionally violent, and very prone to existential crises. Lyra's long ears twitched at him, and he pretended it was amusement. The scavenger drones closed in, firing beams that sang across the hull. Elias yelped, ducked, and pressed random switches. Some fired defensive lasers, others activated countermeasures, and one opened a tiny compartment that launched a decoy drone shaped like a dancing blob. "It works better than it looks?" he yelled over the comm, more to himself than anyone else. Lyra didn't comment, but she did adjust her own craft to intercept a beam aimed at the starling, her movements smooth, precise, almost like choreography. After a tense few minutes, which Elias punctuated with commentary about how space villains have the worst timing for dramatic entrances, the drones retreated, seemingly confused by the coordinated chaos. Elias leaned back in his chair, letting out a long breath. "See, all in a day's work. I like to call that victory with style." Lyra's long ears twitched slowly, one curling forward like it might just touch his shoulder. He pretended not to notice. "You are reckless," Lyra said finally, voice low, almost a reprimand but not entirely. Elias grinned, tapping the console for emphasis. "Reckless me? Oh no, madam, I am an artist of chaos. Precision chaos with occasional improvisation. And jokes." He glanced at her, half expecting a sarcastic retort. Instead, her eyes softened slightly, the faintest acknowledgement that she might appreciate his antics. Hours passed in this strange rhythm. Him making jokes, navigating hazards, her correcting his errors before they became catastrophic. At one point, Elias accidentally activated a holographic coffee maker that started pouring nutrient paste everywhere. "Excellent breakfast and a hazard all in one. I call it paste a la chaos." Lyra's long ears twitched and he interpreted it as laughter, though it could have been judgment. Either way, he counted it as progress. As the nebula began to thin, the stars beyond flickered with distant, unexplored systems. Elias found himself glancing at Lyra more than he would admit, noticing how her hair shifted with the light, how her posture remained poised despite the absurdity around them. "You're a good pilot," he said, not as a joke. "Better than me, and I only say that because it keeps me humble, mostly, maybe." Lyra said nothing, but her eyes held a glimmer of surprise. "You survive through luck and creativity," she said finally, the words carefully chosen. Elias tilted his head, grinning. "Luck, creativity, and just enough stubbornness to annoy the universe. Works for me." He gestured to the open void outside. "You know, I think space might actually like me, or maybe it just likes my jokes. Hard to say." Eventually the calm returned. The starling floated safely through the thinning nebula, Lyra standing silently, observing him with an intensity that made his grin falter for a moment. "You're unpredictable," she said. "And amusing in a way I cannot entirely comprehend." Elias blinked, raising an eyebrow. "Amusing is my middle name. Well, actually, it's Jonathan, but amusing comes first in my resume." He leaned back, hands behind his head. "We make a good team, you know me. Chaos, jokes, barely functional piloting. You, elegance, precision, long ears that could probably pick up interstellar gossip." Lyra allowed a very small smile, one corner of her lips curling as if she were weighing whether to correct him or laugh. He took it as victory. "I'll take it. Tiny smiles count in the grand scheme of cosmic survival." As the stars stretched ahead, silent and infinite, Elias felt a rare, cautious hope. The alliance, born of necessity and tempered with humor, had begun to solidify. He glanced at Lyra, wondering what secrets she held behind those starlit eyes, and whether she might eventually consider humans as more than unpredictable threats. "Don't worry," he said softly, more to himself than her. "I promise not to ruin the next few hours, probably." Lyra's long ears twitched, the faintest acknowledgement of amusement, maybe approval, maybe both. The starling hummed beneath them, steady and reassuring, carrying two very different beings through the chaos and wonder of the uncharted nebula. And in that fragile, fleeting moment, amidst jokes, near disasters, and the occasional absurdity of interstellar life, a strange understanding took root, one that might someday grow into something neither of them expected, and certainly neither could predict. The nebula had thinned into a fine mist of ionized gas, casting ghostly ribbons of green and violet across the void, but the starling shivered as though it too were aware that the climax was near. Elias sat at the helm, fingers tapping nervously against the controls. Lyra stood beside him, long ears tilted forward, watching every readout, every flicker of light, as though the machinery itself were a living puzzle she intended to solve. All right, Elias muttered, time to prove that humans are competent at, survival and stuff, mostly the survival part, occasionally the stuff. He glanced at her. Don't worry, I've got this, probably, well maybe. Okay, definitely probably. Lyra raised an eyebrow, a slight shift that made her long ears twitch just enough to suggest disbelief mixed with curiosity. Your confidence is illogical, she said, yet somehow effective. Elias grinned. Illogical is my superpower. Works in zero gravity, works in normal gravity, and I've heard rumors it works in relationships too. Though do quote me on that. The warning sirens blared. A cascade failure had begun in the heart of her craft, a self-contained reactor anomaly that could rip the hull apart in minutes. Elias leaned over the console, hands flying across buttons, toggling switches that had no manual, no labels, and probably were meant to intimidate intruders rather than help anyone. You ever think someone designed alien technology just to make humans panic? I swear that's a thing. Lyra's long ears twitched sharply, the slight alarm in her stance betraying concern she refused to voice. Elias, she said, tone sharp, this is not a game. If you fail, her voice broke off, but the implication was clear, she expected death. Elias froze, his grin faltering for a fraction of a second. Then he shrugged. If I fail, I'll probably look really heroic, or at least spectacularly foolish. Either way, a story will come of it. He worked through the console with chaotic efficiency, rerouting power, venting plasma in precise bursts, and muttering jokes under his breath to keep both of them calm. I like to think of this as a cosmic cooking show, he said, sending a pulse through the energy conduits. 1 part panic, 2 parts improvisation, sprinkle a dash of insanity, and voila, survival soufflé. Lyra studied him as he worked, her eyes reflecting the flashes of light from the reactor. For the first time, her expression softened. You inspire confidence, she admitted reluctantly, though her ears twitched as if trying to deny it. Despite your absurdity. Elias shrugged. Absurdity is my specialty, and it works better than panic, trust me. Sparks flew from a console and he ducked, hair singed slightly. See, drama. They always say drama improves the taste of the soufflé. Lyra actually let out a small chuckle, the sound delicate but genuine. Elias caught it and nearly fell out of his seat. Victory. That counts as 1 point in the human charm offensive. The critical seconds passed with pulses of energy threatening to cascade into catastrophe. Elias and Lyra worked in tandem, an unspoken rhythm emerging between them. He delivered quips while she made precise calculations, her long ears flicking like antennae toward every subtle shift in the machinery. Slowly, the anomaly stabilized. The reactor hummed evenly once more, the danger abating as the ship's systems returned to nominal function. Elias leaned back, exhaling heavily. We survived, and I didn't even have to hit anything with a wrench. Mostly. He gestured toward Lyra, and you didn't zap me for being obnoxious. That's growth in interspecies diplomacy, if you ask me. Lyra's eyes softened, a mixture of relief and an unfamiliar warmth. You are unlike any human I expected, she admitted. I thought you would kill me, or fail, or at least panic dramatically. Elias grinned. I did panic a little, but I kept it stylish. And sometimes style is survival. For a long moment, they floated in silence, the hum of the freighter filling the void between them. Elias found himself noticing details he hadn't before. The way her hair shimmered in nebular light, the subtle curl of her long ears when she thought deeply, the way her calm presence could steady the chaos around him. He realized he had changed, too, not just as a pilot, but as a human capable of patience, trust, and a sense of connection that had nothing to do with sarcasm or jokes. I should apologize, Elias said, a rare sincerity threading his voice. For assuming you'd hate me, for everything. I know humans are exactly your favorite species. Lyra tilted her head, considering. You did not behave as I anticipated, she said finally. That matters. Elias smirked. Matters, huh? I like the sound of that. I'll file it under small victories. Right next to surviving asteroid showers and terrible puns. She allowed a faint smile and he took it as a monumental win. The freighter emerged from the nebula into open space, the stars stretching endlessly ahead. The danger had passed, the reactors were stable, and for the first time, Elias felt a sense of calm that didn't come from jokes or quick reflexes. "We make a pretty good team," he said, gesturing to her. "I provide the chaos, you provide the precision, together we're like a very odd interstellar cocktail." Lyra's long ears twitched in what could have been amusement or acknowledgement. "Perhaps," she said softly, "we are compatible in ways I did not foresee." Elias leaned back, letting himself relax. "Compatible, I like that word. Sounds fancy, like it belongs in a space opera with dramatic music and unnecessary plot twists." He looked at her and realized something fundamental had shifted. He had come into the nebula as a lone human, a sarcastic survivor accustomed to danger and isolation. He would leave with an understanding that trust, connection, and even humor could survive in the most unlikely places, even in the eyes of an alien who expected nothing but death. "By the way," he said with mock seriousness, "if we ever encounter interstellar karaoke, I expect you to join. I need someone to harmonize with my heroic disaster solos." Lyra's long ears twitched, a ghost of a smile on her lips, and she said nothing, which to Elias meant she was considering it. As the starling drifted through the void, its hull gleaming faintly against distant stars, Elias felt a rare, profound peace. He had faced fear, danger, and expectations of death, and he had emerged not just alive but changed. Lyra floated beside him, her presence no longer a threat but a companion, a challenge, and a reminder that the universe was bigger than suspicion, broader than fear, and occasionally capable of laughter.